coming in. Good morning, and welcome to the Cincinnati Museum Center and Historic Union Terminal. I'm Susan Essler, and I'm the chair of the Board of Trustees here at the Cincinnati Museum Center. We're so pleased to welcome Governor Mike DeWine and our friends from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources to discuss the next phase of the governor's initiative to protect and clean Ohio's waterways with a science-backed, nature-forward approach. And we do so here at the confluence of four major waterways that have historically drawn humans and animals to the region for millennia. Waterways like the Ohio River that have been the lifeblood of the city, and waterways like the Mill Creek that are being revitalized after nearly being destroyed by pollution. One of our goals here at Cincinnati Museum Center is to inspire guests to learn more and be more involved in the world around them. Through galleries like our John A. and Judy Ruthven Get Into Nature Gallery in our Museum of Natural History and Science, the Woods and the Waterworks in the Children's Museum, and our research and programs at the Richard and Lucille Durrell Edge of Appalachia Preserve System, which we co-manage with the Ohio chapter of the Nature Conservancy. We invite guests to explore and learn more about the natural world. We understand that when we immerse people in the natural world around them, we strengthen their connection to it and inspire a desire to improve it. To tell us how Ohio is leading the way to protect and revitalize waterways, it is my pleasure to introduce Governor Mike DeWine.
Good morning, everybody. Susan, thank you very much. It is great to be at the Museum Center. Cincinnati Museum Center is really one of the great treasures that we have, and thank you for hosting us. Thank you for Museum Center's dedication to science, and it's always fun just to walk in here and see what you all are doing and what's available. Susan and I were talking about I wanted to bring some of my grandkids down here over Christmas, so I was getting a little preview of some of the things that they might see. Water. Water is one of Ohio's absolutely greatest assets, and we, as a state, and a number of different organizations, many of them who are represented here in the audience today, have worked for many, many years to make the water quality in the state of Ohio better. It is a tremendous asset that we have. We have a moral obligation to pass the water down to the next generations in better shape than we found it. And we're actually making progress in that area. It's getting better, but we still have more work to do. So today's announcement is really about the next step. We want to come to Cincinnati today to talk about our new H2 Ohio Rivers program. This is a continuation of a program we started right after I became governor, along with the help of the state legislature and money they provided. So this is the new Rivers, H2 Ohio Rivers program. We're obviously close, the Ohio River, the Great Miami River, Little Miami River, and we can go on and on, other rivers throughout the state of Ohio. All of Ohio's large rivers will benefit because of the announcement that we are making today. So let me start with a little background for anyone who isn't familiar with the overall H2 Ohio program that we started right after I became governor, again with the help of the state legislature. In 2019, with the support of the General Assembly, we launched a dedicated, long-term, and holistic water quality program that we named H2 Ohio. H2 Ohio is a partnership between a number of our different departments. For example, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, the Ohio EPA, Ohio Department of Agriculture, and the Ohio Lake Erie Commission. These groups, these different parts of our administration working together along with so many of our local partners. And when you talk about water quality, there's nothing more important than our local partners and what they do. Over the past 4 years, H2 Ohio has focused primarily on reducing nutrients such as farm fertilizer, particularly those at the Maumee Basin that go into the western part of Lake Erie. In addition, through ODNR, we've built and restored 86 wetlands to capture this runoff, and 85 additional wetland projects are currently underway. So to deal with this nutrient problem, number one, as I said, we start with better farming, agricultural practices, and number two, we continue to build wetlands. This is an unprecedented number of wetlands being built in the state of Ohio. I don't think this has ever occurred before, and has great benefit. Getting back to the Department of Agriculture, they work with farmers to reduce runoff into Lake Erie by enrolling nearly 1.5 million acres of farmland in H2 Ohio's best management practices. In addition, the Ohio EPA has worked to help communities pay for critical water infrastructure upgrades. For example, earlier this month, we announced nearly $17 million in grant awards for some very important local projects, including $2 million going to Vinton County in southeast Ohio. This is an area where some residents are forced to haul 250-gallon tanks back and forth simply to get clean water into their homes. No one should have to haul water today in the state of Ohio, and so this again is one of our projects to make sure that is dealt with. Water is truly one of our great assets. It impacts our health, it impacts our quality of life. It's tied also, of course, to economic development and our ability to create jobs. Again, one of the great advantages we have, frankly, over other states is our abundance of water. We know that river health in Ohio has improved tremendously in recent decades, again, thanks to many of the people who are here today. In August, we released a new Ohio EPA study that found that 86% of the state's large rivers are in good to excellent condition. That compares to just 18% that qualified with that designation in the 1980s. So we've come a long way, but obviously there's much more work still to do. With the additional funding, thanks to the General Assembly, in the current operating budget, we're expanding the H2 Ohio initiative to put added focus on our rivers through the new H2 Ohio Rivers program. So today we're happy to announce some of the important projects we're undertaking through this new effort. I'm glad to be joined here today by our state H2 Ohio partners, Director Brian Baldridge, who will be here in a moment, from the Ohio Department of Agriculture, Assistant Director Steve Gray. Steve, thank you for joining us from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, and Director Ann Vogel from the Ohio EPA. Through the H2 Ohio Rivers program, Ohio EPA is undertaking a first-of-its-kind study regarding PFAS. We've all heard about PFAS. These toxic man-made chemicals are often referred to as forever chemicals because they don't degrade over time. They've also been linked to various cancers. Early in our administration, we developed a PFAS action plan, becoming one of the first states in the country to sample public water systems to determine the extent of certain forever chemicals in public drinking water systems throughout the state. Fortunately, as a result of that, we found about 94% of the nearly 1,550 public water systems tested in Ohio revealed no detection of these compounds. Now we're beginning a new PFAS project to test water in Ohio's large rivers, and we're the first state in the country, I believe, to do that. You'll see in the map there are 29 large rivers that will, in fact, be sampled. The findings will inform how we move forward with any necessary remediation. EPA Director Ann Vogel will explain more about that. Ann, you want to come on up?
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Susan. Thank you for having us today. It's a pleasure to see a lot of our advocates in the room. I sure appreciate you being here and your support for the Big Rivers Initiative, for the money that the General Assembly gave the Ohio EPA this last budget, $7.5 or so million a year, to be able to do this type of work, as the governor said. I know a lot of you in the room know Governor DeWine, and you know that he breathes, eats, sleeps the health of Ohioans. And he challenges us in the cabinet and his staff to care about a healthy Ohio and making Ohioans healthier. It's the mission of the Ohio EPA to protect health and the environment in Ohio for all Ohioans. So I get to give money for infrastructure for kids. I get to have fun with the kids that we provide clean drinking water to, and it's such a privilege. So this effort is already underway, I'm happy to say. We have started sampling in the Great Miami, 21 spots so far, and as the governor said, yep, that's this slide. And as the governor said, we'll be all over the state of Ohio, 29 rivers, and more than 150 locations. This gives us a baseline. This tells us where we have concerns. This tells us where we know we need to go find the sources of contamination so that we can protect Ohioans' recreational activities in the water, drinking water, and the other things that we rely on this great natural resource for. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here. I'll turn it back to the governor.
Thanks, Ann. Thank you very much. Let's shift now to dams. Not only do dams negatively impact river health and water quality, but many in Ohio have outlived their intended use. They're deteriorating, and they are in fact dangerous. And so some dams are certainly necessary, but those that are not, we are taking action that will in fact make our water better. As part of the H2 Ohio program, both the Ohio EPA and the Ohio Department of Natural Resources are dedicating funding to remove unnecessary dams across the state of Ohio. Our goal is to restore river health, improve river quality, boost the economy by enhancing recreational opportunities on these waters. Among the first dam project to receive H2 Ohio River funding are 3 dams in Miami County. H2 Ohio will help remove the dams on the Great Miami River in both Troy and Piqua. We'll also remove the Piqua Sheet Pile Dam. So let me now invite Ohio Department of Natural Resources Assistant Director Steve Gray to come up and tell us about that. Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you, Director Vogel. And it's just so great to see all of our conservation partners here today that have been helping us with H2 Ohio for these last 4 years plus, and now we're in this new endeavor with the Rivers program. So many of our streams in Ohio have the old low-head dams. We'd like to strategically remove some of these dams to improve the water quality in the streams and rivers. As the governor mentioned, we have these already targeted, but there's others around the state that we are going to try to remove. We have to work with the local partners in every instance to do this. But when we take out a dam, we definitely improve the ecosystem of that river, which in turn improves the water quality. If you look at this display back here, what we'd like to see would be free-flowing streams where possible. We know that in some places there are needs for dams to act as flood control, but if that's not the particular need, then we would like to remove those and work with our local partners to do that. Thank you, Governor.
One of the things we're seeing in communities across Ohio is a rediscovery, really, of the water, whether it be the lake or Lake Erie, for example, some of the communities along the lake or communities along some of our major rivers, even smaller rivers in the state. People like to walk along rivers. They like to walk along the lakes. And, I won't start mentioning communities that are doing this, but there's so many communities now that have said, look, this is what we want. We want to improve the quality of life. This is going to help also with tourism. People like to do that. And so taking some of these dams down that are not necessary is certainly one way that we can help the local community do that. Let me now turn to agriculture. As we've mentioned, agriculture runoff is certainly a big contributor to water quality issues, including algae bloom. Through the H2 Ohio Rivers program, both the Ohio Department of Natural Resources and the Ohio Department of Agriculture are partnering to incentivize farmers to voluntarily set aside environmentally sensitive acreage so it can be preserved in a manner that reduces agricultural runoff and protects water quality. Working with the federal government, H2 Ohio Rivers will establish a Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program, a CREP, around the Great Miami River watershed and the state scenic Little Miami River watershed as well. See on the map. This map shows you the anticipated boundaries of the new CREP. We know that CREP is impactful because the program has been at work since the early 2000 in both the Lake Erie and the Scioto watershed. Let me now ask Director Baldridge to come up. Brian?
Thank you, Governor. Good morning. As we know, farmers have been the original conservationists. For decades, farmers have been at the forefront of caring for the land and conserving soil and water. The CREP, as the Governor just mentioned, has been successfully used for 2 decades and already has improved 137,000 acres in the Lake Erie and Scioto watershed. With the expansion of Ohio's CREP, producers now have land that maybe isn't productive on a normal day, row crop, agricultural aspect, but they'll now be eligible for conservation practices that will help water quality in the Miami River and beyond. As we know that protecting and conserving our natural resources is one of the most important things we can do to not only support agriculture, but also improve everyone's success to clean water and maintain a good quality in life. Ohio Department of Agriculture's mission is to improve water quality by incentivizing farmers to install CREP practices on 60,000 new acres. These practices are designed to reduce nutrient runoff, take up nutrients that are already in the soils, reduce erosion, and control drainage by nearby farms. Practices include grassland buffers, filter strips, forestry buffers, and controlled drainage water management. We know the upper and lower Great Miami and the Little Miami River watersheds will all benefit from the expansion of this program. Additionally, beginning this year, ODA H2 Ohio program will be offered to producers statewide. With the goal of enrolling more than 500,000 new acres, CREP's long-term conservation practices combined with ODA's H2 Ohio nutrient management practices are working for farmlands all across our state, will provide the complete package to help farmers do what is right. We have seen an enormous interest in H2 Ohio thus far, and we are excited to see Ohio's producers continually step up and help be part of the solution in water quality. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Governor.
Before we go to questions, let me acknowledge Joy Mullinex. Joy does really, really great work from the Great Lakes Commission. Joy, you want to stand up? Let me also acknowledge former First Lady Hope Taft, who really spent so much time focusing on our rivers, and I know that she's been out in the Little Miami a lot and in other rivers as well. So Hope, thank you very, very much. Give our best to the governor. We appreciate you being here. So I know we're going to have some questions about the aquarium here. Whose aquarium is this? Steve, is this yours or whose is it? Would you like to stand up and tell people what this is? What are we doing here?
I'm going to call on Kip Brown to do that. So these are fish collected from the Little Miami River. And we can use species of fish and also species of freshwater mussels to give us an indicator of water quality. So this section of the Little Miami where these fish were taken is already exceptional warm water habitat. We'd like to have other streams in Ohio come up to those standards. This is just an example of what a fish community should look like in a stream that has good water quality. This is from the Little Miami in Greene County, and just collected.
My home county.
Our county. That wasn't my accent. Kip, you want to add anything? Where's Kip?
Yeah, this was kind of,
Okay, get them down.
She's walking out, so you might just expand a little bit about indicator species, Kip, and what species we look for to show good water quality.
Okay, so Friday we went out to the river, you know where the Jacoby Road canoe launch is? These fish all came right from there. We took a seine and we just took a real quick sample of some stuff that's in the riffle areas of the stream. And what we have are some really good indicators. Actually, this fish with the black spot on its fin and the red, that's a scarlet shiner. And you only find those in high water quality streams. Also, this large silvery one is a silver shiner. And some of the ones that are hiding on the bottom, we have rainbow darters, greenside darters, banded darters. And again, all of these fish, as a single individual, it's great to see them. When you start seeing a community of them that are exceptional warm or exceptional water quality species, it just really builds a picture that something is really good. Also, if you stare at the tank long enough, you'll see some insects in there they haven't been eaten yet. And a lot of these fish, the reason they are indicators of good water quality is because their food source needs really good water quality. Stoneflies, mayflies, caddisflies, and we found all of those in a very short amount of time there. So that's excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I've launched a canoe at that place quite often, so, over the years, so good. Happy to answer any questions from the media.
Governor, real quick, it's good to see you. Being Mr. Naive here, we haven't talked about the giant river to our south, the Ohio. Is that part of this, or is that because?
Who wants to take that? Ann, come on up.
Yes.
Thank you for pointing that out.
So the Ohio River has its own watchdog. I'm sure you know the Orsenco Commission, right? Ohio River Sanitary Commission. So they are part of this effort. We work very closely with Orsenco. Both Director Mertz and I are on the board. And so a lot of the work we're doing, Orsenco already does as well. So this is a chance to focus on some of the other larger rivers in Ohio that flow into the Ohio.
But all these flow in.
That's right.
Some of these flow into the Ohio River, so.
That's right.
So ultimately, you know, if you're dealing with the Little Miami, the Big Miami, you know, if you're improving the quality of water there, you know, obviously you're going to be improving the quality of water going into the Ohio River. So, you know, we're obviously very, very concerned. As you know, we have a multi-state group that does, in fact, every day, every hour, every minute, focus on the quality of water in the Ohio River. And I got to see that firsthand after we had the train wreck, and we kind of watched that and got the reports. And they do a phenomenal job. They're very, very, very good. But the whole effort to improve water in this whole watershed obviously is going to directly impact what occurs in the Ohio River. So very, very.
Real quick, if you don't mind, Governor, you talked about tourism and economic drivers relative to Ohio's water. I'm really fascinated, to your point, when we heard from the head of Orsenco and how blessed we are to have a really pretty healthy river valley here relative to other places. I think of that, Silicon Valley corridor coming to the, east of Columbus. What role does the water play when Intel was looking at those properties? Did that play a role in all this?
Yeah, huge role. When we talk about a company like Intel or many companies, they use a lot of water, and they have to have it available. Has to be, readily available, reasonable price, and so. From the point of view of attracting businesses to come to the state of Ohio, having good, high-quality water. We already have a lot of water, but it's keeping it clean, it's doing what we need to do. Frankly, it gives us a great competitive advantage over many, many other states. What we've seen in Ohio through the work of so many different groups, through the state, but also from the private, nonprofits, there's been a continued effort for 30 or 40 years to improve the water quality in the state of Ohio. So if you look at the quality today versus 10 years ago, 20 years ago, with very few exceptions, we're doing better. This announcement that we're making today, though, is a refocus on the rivers in the state of Ohio. This is saying, look, we're going to take every single river in the state of Ohio, we're going to put some, where we need help, we're going to have some state money that's going to help to improve that. And the four different groups that in our administration are working closer together than they've ever worked before. I've said, look, you're the ones in our administration who deal with the water. You need to work together. And so they're coordinated very, very closely. Where we really saw that is in what we called H2 Ohio, when we were focused, really on Lake Erie. Being here in Cincinnati today, the reason we're here in Cincinnati today is because what we're announcing today is focused to a great extent on Southwest Ohio. And it's essential that we have good water here. We've made great progress. We got to keep going. That's what this is all about. Anybody else?
Governor, talking about PFAS, after studying the prevalence of it in the rivers, finding the sources, what comes next? Will the state be trying to reduce that in the rivers?
I'll ask Ann to come back up. As you can see, I get any tough questions. I've got people who know a lot more than I do about it.
Well, so a little bit of history, if I may. So going back really to 2019, when we had a first detection, the governor remembers, he said, go test everything, go find out where we've got a problem. And so this is really phase 2 of that effort. So we spent, a year testing our public water systems to figure out where we had hotspots. And as the governor mentioned this morning, we know where that is now. So this is about finding out where it is in surface water, in the rivers. And it'll be the same process. Then we know where we need to treat drinking water. Then we know that maybe we have a source where we need to go upstream and we need to go up sewer shed and find the source of the contamination, because we're not going to be able to treat our way out of this. We're going to have to find the sources and stop it. So that's the next step of this effort, and we appreciate the governor's support and the legislature's support for this PFAS action plan that's ongoing, and it's also a collaborative effort. I want to say that with all of the governor's agencies, with the Department of Health and others that are also part of that effort.
Step here a minute. Let me ask. When we first started looking at this, the PFAS issue in 2019, one of the things that our Ohio EPA explained to me is that the standards that have been set may be changing. And so they have really significantly changed. And so I'm going to ask the director to talk about that for a moment. Again, there's a lot that is unknown in regard to PFAS. And I think one of the things that there's been evolving, I think judgments being made in regard to is what level is acceptable, what level is not acceptable. So.
Yeah, that's exactly right. What we were dealing with back then was health action levels of 70 parts per trillion. Now we're talking about the US EPA, we think, maybe by year end, will come out with a standard of 4, which is significantly lower.
70 to 4. So it's a big difference. But the key is finding out where it is, making sure people know where it is, and then doing whatever we can do, remediation. But again, it's you first have to know what we're dealing with. That's where we put a great deal of focus on. So, anybody else?
I'll follow that up quickly, because I don't know a lot about it. I'm hearing about it, and there's a lot of concern from parents and the stuff that congestion you get in your body. Does it set up a potential showdown between a largely pro-business administration versus these conglomerations that make this stuff? Are you going to have conversations that may be challenging to say, can we maybe limit the amount of PFAS that go into products? I'm so naive about all this stuff, but it's concerning to a lot of people. I know that.
Contentious, we haven't had that problem yet. I will say that within the last month, Governor, we announced, the governor asked us to start this effort in Dayton, to start going up sewer shed to find these sources, and the community has been very receptive to this. Our industry has been very receptive.
So one of the sources, as you know, is from fire departments that are doing work in regard to the foam. And so a lot of this is historic. This has happened in the past, and many times you're seeing a switchover. But what we're dealing with is a legacy. I'm not going to say it's all legacy, but certainly a lot of it is legacy. So we got to go. The changes are being made, but now we're left with that legacy, and we got to go deal with that legacy.
Do you think this will lead to, laws being passed about how these things need to be stored, you know, things to reduce PFAS getting into the water in the first place?
New laws, I wouldn't say. I think we know what caused it. As the governor said, it's legacy. We know where it came from. We know what types of manufacturing facilities, plating facilities caused it. And so we know where it is still living in the soil, leaching into the rivers, for example. So it's really it's more a matter of the technical process of how do you destroy a forever chemical. So we're more interested, I think, in the science right now of figuring out solutions versus maybe the legislative or legal
You might
side.
mention the settlement that was just reached in regards to.
So the governor announced last Wednesday a settlement with DuPont. That was a state court settlement in Washington County related to Washington Works, which was a plating facility that we knew was a source of contamination. So that was a DuPont Chemours settlement, and there are lawsuits across the state of Ohio. The governor brought that one in Washington County when you were in the AG's office. And so, again, it's getting the people who caused the problem to pay for it, to clean it up. So we appreciate that support.
Anybody else?
Was there a reason for the choice of the Great Miami River? Is there a specific source of, has historic a history of this, or is there other factors that came into play for the initial evaluation?
We are, again, because we have the baseline data available to us from our action plan, we are certainly aware that there were sources of PFAS here in the valley. So it was the reason to start here.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Governor.